Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring how a simple, everyday kitchen ingredient transforms into a scientifically validated, multi-targeted therapeutic agent. We're going to unpack the absolutely fascinating biological mechanics of aged garlic extract, or AGE. Now, if you think you already know what garlic does for the body, well, prepare to have your perspective completely shifted. We are moving way past traditional folk medicine here and diving straight into modern multiomics, proteomics, and some really rigorous clinical trials.
Okay, here's what we're covering today. 1. Raw versus aged garlic. 2. Reversing cardiovascular disease. 3. Shielding the aging brain. 4. Bolstering immune defenses. And finally, number 5. Upgrading athletic endurance. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Raw versus aged garlic.
So, we've all heard raw garlic is incredibly good for us, right? I mean, it's been used for over 5,000 years. But modern pharmacokinetics actually reveals a pretty massive chemical flaw in how our bodies process it. When you crush raw garlic, it produces a compound called allicin. And sure, while allicin looks incredible in a test tube for fighting off bacteria, once it gets inside the human body, it's a completely different story. It is highly volatile, it oxidizes almost instantly in your bloodstream, and it can actually cause severe gastrointestinal irritation. So you aren't really absorbing what you think you are. Now, when we look at the chemistry of raw garlic with that unstable allicin, it's a stark contrast to the aged version. While some specialized supplements out there do try to deliver stabilized allicin, the traditional aging process takes a totally different and frankly much better route. By properly aging the garlic, those harsh, really odorous compounds are enzymatically converted into water-soluble, highly stable organosulfur compounds. The big one here is S-allylcysteine, or SAC. SAC is completely odorless, it's gentle on your stomach, and get this, it is over 90% bioavailable. That means your body actually absorbs it and puts it to work system-wide.
But here's the thing. This transformation doesn't just happen overnight. It requires a meticulously controlled aging period of up to 20 months, nearly 2 years. It is a true exercise in biological patience. You literally can't just heat it up or rush the process.
It really comes down to a proprietary 4-step methodology. This process safely converts those volatile, tissue-irritating organosulfurs into a powerful, standardized phytomedicine, and crucially, it does it entirely without heat. Starting from chemical-free organic farming all the way through a cold hydroethanolic extraction that lasts over a year and a half, the result? Every single drop contains a highly reliable, standardized dose of that incredibly bioavailable SAC we were just talking about.
Section 2. Reversing cardiovascular disease. You know, as we age, we literally lose the elastin and collagen in our arterial walls. They harden up. A critical way cardiologists measure this is through something called pulse wave velocity, or PWV. Think of it like measuring how rigid your biological pipes have become over the years. Well, clinical trials have actually demonstrated that aged garlic extract significantly improves this arterial compliance. By acting as a dual regulator for nitric oxide and hydrogen sulfide, which are basically the gases that tell your blood vessels to relax, it physically lowers your central blood pressure. It's like a biological plumber for your vessels.
And the clinical findings back this up beautifully. Multiple randomized studies show it can actually reduce low attenuation soft plaque in patients dealing with metabolic syndrome. Dr. Matthew Budoff, who is a lead researcher on multiple trials for this, actually puts it in an elite class of therapies. I mean, it's not just slowing down the buildup of that dangerous, non-calcified plaque that causes heart attacks. It's actively stabilizing and potentially reversing it. That is an absolute paradigm shift in cardiovascular nutrition.
Okay, Section 3. Shielding the aging brain.
Moving from our body's physical pipes up to the control center. Through extensive multi-omics modeling, which is essentially a fancy way of saying they looked at the whole giant puzzle of genetic and protein interactions all at once, scientists have observed that this extract acts as a multi-target neuroprotective agent. We are talking about a true neuroshield effect operating right down at the cellular level.
Normally, an aging brain is dealing with high oxidative stress and chronic neuroinflammation, which is often driven by these hyperactive immune cells in the brain, called microglia. But when you introduce those stable SAC compounds, they actually physically interact with and inhibit something called the NF-κP pathway. Basically, they flip the genetic switch that triggers inflammation to the off position. By stopping this hyperinflammatory damage right at its source, it reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines and actually improves your brain's ability to form new connections, what we call synaptic plasticity. The research on this is just wild. In long-term trials spanning 40 weeks with aging mice, researchers mapped out the brain's proteins and found sweeping structural improvements. The extract quite literally reprogrammed the brain's protein expression. It dialed down a major marker for oxidative stress called serine BP1 and dialed up PYDIN, which is a peptide absolutely essential for learning and memory. And behaviorally, the animals showed vastly better memory, enhanced spatial learning, and a massive reduction in anxiety-like behaviors. They became so much more exploratory and resilient.
Section 4. Bolstering immune defenses.
Let's look at how this optimizes our innate immune response. A 90-day, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial took healthy adults right in the middle of peak cold and flu season to test their immune function. They found that a daily dose of aged garlic extract significantly boosts both the proliferation and the activation of two critical frontline defenders, natural killer cells and gamma delta T cells. These are literally your body's cellular first responders to viral pathogens.
But the real-world clinical impact is where it gets super interesting. The incidence of actually catching a cold wasn't completely eliminated. People still got sick, but the severity was absolutely slashed. Subjects experienced a 61% reduction in suboptimal days, 58% fewer missed days of work or school, and 21% fewer total symptoms. How does it do that? By priming your immune cells to aggressively attack the bad guys, while at the exact same time preventing the hyperinflammatory tissue damage that makes you feel so awful in the first place. It's an incredible immunomodulatory balancing act.
And finally, Section 5, upgrading athletic endurance. So how does all this translate into physical performance? There was a fascinating 12-week trial focused on middle-aged recreational endurance athletes. Remember that arterial flexibility, the pulse wave velocity we talked about earlier? Well, by increasing the flexibility of the arteries, blood flow is heavily optimized. For these athletes, that meant a very measurable increase in VO2 max, a much higher lactate threshold so they could push harder before the burn set in, and vastly faster recovery times from muscle soreness. Even their urinary proteomics showed a drop in biomarkers associated with cardiovascular risk. They essentially built a stronger, more efficient aerobic engine entirely from within. So this explainer definitely validates some ancient wisdom through the lens of modern science, but it also completely challenges our assumptions. It proves that eating things raw isn't always the best way. Sometimes true biological chemistry requires time, extreme patience, and very precise transformation to unlock its real potential. It really leaves us to wonder, what other nutritional powerhouses are out there simply waiting to be properly unlocked by the right process? Definitely something to think about the next time you're looking at the ingredients in your kitchen. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive today. Stay curious and keep learning.